This is the best 100-mile ride in Scotland, and it'll be divided into 3 videos, with the parts able to be done as day rides. This is the first one, takes us from the village of Strontian to the lighthouse at Ardnamurchan Point, the most westerly point on the British mainland.
If you're new here, I make adventure cycling and adventure swimming videos, mainly in the Scottish Highlands. With COVID restrictions, I've also made a series of videos for new cyclists. If any of that sounds interesting, please click subscribe. Thank you. I'm starting this ride in the village of Strontian because this is where I started when I guided the team from Cyclist magazine, starting in what they later described as biblical rain. Don't let today's weather fool you. Their story is in the December 2013 magazine. It was one of 3 rides I took them on, and I believe this one later made it into a book of their best UK rides. They concluded, "It does feel pretty epic." The whole route is a long day involving 2 ferries, so I'll split it into 3 videos. Each part can be done as a separate ride. Part 1 from Strontian goes out to Ardnamurchan Lighthouse. That's the ride in this video, and possibly the best. The first ferry goes to the Isle of Mull, where there are several routes down the island. This is part 2 of the ride and the second video. Part 3 involves yet another ferry across to Morven and a wild open ride with more hills back to the start, and that's video 3. I'll publish the videos sequentially. Confusingly, there are 2 places called Sallen on the route today, and this one is the real start of the Ardnamurchan Peninsula. The jetty shop has coffee, but probably won't be open yet because a very early start is needed on this ride. The ferries are infrequent, so I'm always clock watching, which is hard given the scenic distractions.
You know, one of the things which really make this ride is coming around a bend to a view like that. At times this is like cycling through a green corridor. This area is so lush, and there are not too many places in Britain where you can cycle through a rainforest, but that's what is happening here. Yes, there are introduced species like the roadies, but this is what it's all about here, the oak woods. We're in part of the... I'm falling through the hole in the ground. We're in the Sunart Oakwood Initiative here, and this is the species that used to blanket this area. Oh, and incidentally, while we're talking forests, you might have heard Scotland referred to as Caledonia. The word was given it by the Romans, and it comes from the mythical Greek hunting forest of Caledon.
This claims to be Scotland's greenest distillery and will produce its first single malt in 2021. Tours can be booked online. There's a decent cafe at the Natural History Centre before the first real hill. The road so far has had lots of ramps, but this is one to get stuck into, with a breather at an amazing view.
This is Camus N'goal, and there is something definitely special about this place. There's a standing stone down there. There is lots of history that I don't pretend to know. The place has a very definite quality to it, as well as magnificent views. The road here, you can now see where we're headed. This is Ben Heant. We're trying to get over the shoulder of that mountain, and this climb is rising in 3 stages.
That's the Isle of Mull in the distance, where I'll head in part 2 of this ride. For now, I'm climbing over the ridge that runs down Ardnamurchan, leaving the lush green coast and heading into moorland. In time, there are views across to the north side of the peninsula. First the Kilchoan of Skye, then the smaller Kilchoan on Rum, and the other small isles in front, Egg and Muck.
This is the long downhill into Kilchoan, and you really do have to be careful on this because the sight lines aren't great. A few years ago, a cyclist hit a sheep on this. The sheep was okay, but the cyclist most definitely was not. And the air ambulance had to be called. It even made the BBC News. So just go careful.
Kilchoan is the village at the bottom of the hill where a sign announces it's just 6 miles to the lighthouse. But it is a hilly 6 miles, so allow 90 minutes to get there and back to the ferry to tackle all 3 parts of the ride.
I just stopped to watch a group of hinds make their way across that basin. The GoPro lens wouldn't pick them out, but they did look pretty good. This is a good time to talk volcanoes because that ridge there is the back of a magma chamber that was part of a huge volcano that covered this area long ago, and it was one of several that dotted this part of Scotland long before Scotland was Scotland.
There's a palpable sensation of arriving at the edge of a landmass. There's a cafe here, a museum, and lighthouse tours. Take a walk to the massive foghorn and look out across to Coll and Tiree, Skye and the Small Isles. In bad weather, there are few wilder places.
So this is a rather pointed end to a fantastic ride. Where else would you get a rainforest, a volcano, and such fantastic scenery in one ride? And there's nothing wrong with turning around here and heading back home and having a fantastic day out. However, if you have got up early enough and you get your skates on, you might still get the ferry out to Mull and do the next stage of the ride that I did with Cyclist magazine.
In part 2, we'll ride through one of Scotland's most picturesque towns, tackle a series of zigzags that feel more like an alpine climb, and take another ferry into wild Morven to complete this great century ride. Please subscribe and hit the notifications so you'll hear when the next video is published. And until next time, bye.